Hey guys, tonight we're diving headfirst into the chaos of Norse mythology, specifically the cataclysmic event known as Ragnarok. It's a battle, a war, and the ultimate test of fate, where the gods face the very forces of destruction that threaten to tear apart their world. The winds howl as if they already know what's coming. The sky darkens with the heavy promise of battle, and you can feel the tremors in the ground beneath you. Ragnarok is here. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a battlefield. The gods of Asgard, the mighty warriors, are preparing for their final stand. Odin, Thor, and the rest of the gods, who have shaped the world with their hands and minds, are about to meet their fate. Ragnarok, according to Viking legend, isn't just the end of the world. It's the ultimate test of everything the gods stood for. Even the most powerful of them will fall. Odin, who sacrificed an eye for wisdom, will fall to the jaws of Freyr, the wolf he once raised. Thor, the thunderous god of war, will meet the serpent Jormungandr in a battle so fierce, it will drain his very life force. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. This sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. But in Viking lore, it's more than just a story. It's a lesson. And not just for the gods. This is a story for you, too. The Vikings believed that everything has its end, even the gods. Even their beloved Asgard. Everything was cyclical. Death wasn't something to fear, it was a part of life. And when the end came, it would bring with it a new beginning. But don't be fooled, Ragnarok isn't just some grand finale for the gods. It's a deeper philosophy about the nature of existence itself. It's a reminder that nothing lasts forever. Not even the mightiest of gods. Not even the grand halls of Valhalla. Historians still argue whether Ragnarok was meant to be a literal prophecy or a symbolic metaphor for the inevitable destruction and rebirth of the world. Some see it as the Viking way of understanding the inevitability of death, the end of an era, and the rise of something new. Others believe it's a direct reflection of the brutal, unpredictable world the Vikings lived. In a world where death and destruction were ever present, where battles were fought with no guarantee of victory or survival. But no matter how you interpret it, one thing is certain. Ragnarok shows the fragility of even the most powerful beings. The gods, despite their strength and wisdom, are not immune to the ravages of time and fate. And as you stand here, watching the clouds churn and the winds intensify, you realize this battle is more than just about gods and monsters. It's about understanding the fragility of everything around you. The Kot Viking worldview embraced this idea fully. Life is fleeting. Greatness, fame, and power, no matter how hard you fight to achieve them, will eventually fade away. The gods who have reigned over Asgard for ages will fall, and their world will burn. The mighty Odin, who gave an eye to gain wisdom, will meet his end at the hands of the very creature he once tried to control, Fenrir. Thor, whose hammer strikes down any foe in his path, will perish in a final battle with the serpent Jormungandr, his life force drained by the venom of the beast. And yet, even in the face of such overwhelming destruction, there's a sense of inevitability. The gods know it's coming. And instead of fighting it, they accept it, knowing that the cycle must continue. They embrace their fate with a sense of pride and honor, because they know that without destruction, there can be no rebirth. The ashes of the old world will fertilize the soil for something new to rise. But why does this matter to you, standing here in the shadow of the gods? Because Ragnarok is a reminder that all things, no matter how great, will one day come to an end. Your journey, your battles, your victories, none of them are permanent. The world is always changing, and while it may seem daunting, it's the very force that propels you forward. The Vikings understood this truth deeply. They weren't afraid of death. They embraced it. They saw it as a necessary part of the natural order. So, as you stand here, amidst the gathering storm, you can't help but reflect on the lessons hidden within the violence of Ragnarok. The gods may fall, but the cycle will continue. Nothing, not even them, is exempt from the ravages of Time. This isn't just a story about gods and giants. It's about the truth that life and death are inextricably linked. It's about accepting that the world will change, whether you're ready for it or not. And it's about learning to live in the moment, knowing that, like the gods, you too must one day face your own end. But there's no need for fear. The end is just a new beginning. You can hear the thunder now. The rumble of it grows louder, more intense, as if the sky itself is echoing the clash of gods and monsters. You feel it deep within you. This battle isn't just a tale from the past. It's alive. It's in you. The storm of Ragnarok is a reminder that everything ends, but with every end comes the possibility of something greater. The gods may fall, but they leave behind something that will grow and evolve. They're not just dying, they're making room for the new. And as you look up at the darkening sky, with the winds howling louder than ever, you realize that this is just the beginning of something far greater than you could ever imagine. The gods are about to face their fate, and you're about to experience the raw power of Ragnarok in all its thunderous glory. The air is still charged, like the lingering sensation after lightning strikes the ground. The storm, though just beginning, already holds a certain gravity. You can feel the weight of everything, the promise of what's to come, and perhaps you even wonder, what price is one willing to pay for wisdom? Odin, the All-Father, is at the heart of this. The king of the gods, with his one eye, has always known that true wisdom requires sacrifice. But it's his quest for knowledge that will ultimately shape his fate. You see, in Viking myth, Odin wasn't just born with knowledge, he sought it. And the price he paid was unlike anything anyone could have imagined. To gain the wisdom he so deeply craved, Odin sacrificed not just his physical eye, but his very soul, in a way. He hung from Yggdrasil, the world tree, for 9 days and nights, pierced by his own spear. This act of self-sacrifice, an agonizing test of endurance and willpower, was his pursuit of deeper understanding. Historians still argue whether this was a literal event or symbolic of the inner struggles we all face when seeking enlightenment. Perhaps it was both. Odin's suffering, a reflection of how one must lose themselves to truly find themselves. But this isn't just about Odin's pain, it's about the sacrifices you, too, must make in the pursuit of greater understanding. Odin, for all his power, was willing to endure extreme hardship to gain the knowledge he sought. His journey wasn't one of immediate gratification, but of long-term sacrifice. It's a testament to the Viking worldview, that nothing worth having comes without great cost. And what exactly did Odin gain? He didn't just gain the ability to see the future or a deeper connection with the gods. He gained the knowledge of life and death, the hidden truths that lurk beneath the surface of our world. He understood the fragility of existence and the complex web of fate that ties all living things together. He became the keeper of wisdom, not because it was easy, but because he was willing to give up everything to gain it. The lesson here is clear. Wisdom doesn't come cheaply. You don't just wake up one day with all the answers. You have to seek them, often through personal struggle and sacrifice. Odin's price wasn't just physical, it was an emotional and spiritual toll that would change him forever. In his agony, in his suffering, he found something more powerful than strength, insight. And in that insight, he saw not just the future, but the cycles of life, death, and rebirth that govern the world around him. And as you consider this, you might wonder, are you ready for that kind of sacrifice? Will you endure the pain it takes to gain true wisdom, the kind that changes your life? It's not easy, of course. Odin's journey was brutal, a raw testament to the intensity of his desire for knowledge. But in his suffering, he gained something that transcended all that he lost. But it wasn't just Odin who sought knowledge. The Viking people, too, were driven by a thirst for understanding. They didn't just worship the gods, they sought to understand them, to learn from them, to walk in their footsteps. The Vikings were explorers, both of the physical world and the world of ideas. They sailed across uncharted oceans, but they also ventured deep into the heart of their own existence, questioning life and death, fate and free will, and like Odin, they weren't afraid to make sacrifices along the way. They understood that wisdom was not something to be taken lightly. It was something earned, something forged in the crucible of experience. Historians often debate whether Odin's sacrifice was a reflection of the Vikings' own worldview, a worldview that placed value on self-sacrifice, on bravery in the face of hardship. Was Odin's hanging from the tree a metaphor for the Viking spirit, the willingness to endure hardship in pursuit of a greater cause? Or was it more about his personal journey, one that set him apart from the other gods, a quest for understanding that transcended the mundane? Either way, Odin's story speaks to a fundamental truth in the Viking spirit, that wisdom is not just knowledge, but the ability to navigate life's challenges, to see beyond the surface, and to understand the delicate balance between life and death. As you think about Odin's sacrifice, you might begin to realize that wisdom, in its truest sense, isn't about acquiring power. It's about understanding the complexity of the world around you, accepting the harshness of life and its inevitable end, and finding meaning in the journey itself. The Vikings believed that to gain this wisdom was to accept the inevitable nature of fate, that we are all part of a larger, ever-turning wheel, where each of us plays a small but essential role. But Odin wasn't the only god to make sacrifices. Thor, the god of thunder, has his own share of battles and burdens. He wields the mighty hammer Mjolnir, but with great power comes great responsibility. Thor's world is one of constant struggle, constant battle. Yet, despite his brute strength and his fearsome reputation, Thor struggles with his own limitations. Like Odin, he is bound by fate. And in that, he too becomes a symbol for something deeper. The question isn't whether Thor will defeat his enemies, it's whether he will accept that some battles can't be won, and whether he will understand the price of victory. The gods, despite their power, are not infallible. They too are part of the larger cycle that defines existence, the endless dance between creation and destruction, between life and death. They are not immune to suffering, not beyond sacrifice. And their willingness to embrace that sacrifice, to understand that wisdom requires more than just knowledge, is what sets them apart. So, as you stand in the shadow of the gods, you realize that the true lesson isn't just about seeking power or wisdom, it's about understanding the cost of that pursuit. Just like Odin, who was willing to give up his eye for knowledge, you too must ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice to gain the wisdom you seek? It's a question that only you can answer, but the answer will shape the very fabric of your existence. The storm has settled slightly now, the winds quieting as the clash of gods grows nearer. It's almost as if the world holds its breath, waiting for the inevitable. And among the gods, one stands apart, his name carried on the winds with the weight of both reverence and fear: Thor, the god of thunder. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, is legendary. It strikes strong enough to shatter mountains and send armies fleeing in terror. But despite his immense power, Thor is more than just a warrior. He is a symbol of strength, duty, and struggle. You feel the rumble beneath your feet as Thor prepares for the battle of his life. His mission? To defeat the monstrous serpent Jormungandr, a creature so large it encircles the entire world. Thor knows this fight will cost him dearly. He may win, but he won't walk away unscathed. The question isn't whether Thor can strike down the serpent. The question is whether he can live with the consequences of his victory. You know Thor well by now: his thunderous roar, his loyalty to the gods, his fierce protectiveness over his people. But there's something else to Thor, something deeper beneath the surface. His greatest struggle isn't against Jormungandr or any of his foes. It's his responsibility. Thor carries the weight of the world on his shoulders, and that weight grows heavier with every battle. Thor's thunderous power makes him seem invincible, but even he has limits. The Vikings, who worshipped him as their protector, understood this all too well. The gods were mighty, but they were also mortal in their own way. Thor's power was incredible, but it came with an undeniable price. Thor knew that every battle would take a toll on his body, on his spirit. He had no choice but to face each challenge head-on, even when the odds seemed impossible. Thor wasn't just fighting for survival, he was fighting for meaning, for purpose. In his battle with Jormungandr, Thor isn't just fighting a creature of legend. He's fighting the inevitable. It's not just about defeating a monster, it's about confronting the very forces of chaos that threaten to tear apart the fabric of existence. And in this confrontation, you realize something profound. The battle between Thor and Jormungandr is not simply a physical one. It's a metaphor for the struggle every person faces when confronted with their own limitations. Historians still debate whether Thor's fight with Jormungandr was intended to represent the internal struggle we all face. Was it about Thor's personal journey, his acceptance of his own vulnerability? Or was it a reflection of the Viking belief that each warrior must confront the forces of chaos, no matter how overwhelming they may be? Either way, Thor's battle isn't just about physical power, it's about accepting the inherent fragility of life and the importance of perseverance. Even in the face of insurmountable odds, Thor's strength lies not in his hammer, but in his unyielding will. He embodies the Viking spirit, a spirit that never backs down, even when faced with destruction. But here's the twist. Despite his victory, Thor's fight with Jormungandr is ultimately his undoing. As Thor strikes the serpent down, he too is struck, poisoned by the venom of the creature. The victory is bittersweet. Thor, for all his strength, cannot escape the consequences of his actions. You can almost feel Thor's struggle within yourself, the constant battle to balance strength and vulnerability, duty and desire. The Vikings saw in Thor a reflection of their own lives, constant battle, constant struggle, and the inevitable cost of victory. They too faced forces beyond their control. They fought, not just to survive, but to understand their place in the world, to carve out a meaning in a life defined by hardship. Thor's story serves as a reminder that no matter how powerful you may seem, no one is invincible. The strongest will fall, the bravest will falter, and the mightiest will have to face their own limitations. But there is power in that. There is power in accepting that no victory is without cost, and no battle is without consequence. Thor's hammer may be mighty, but it is his ability to continue fighting, even when the odds are against him, that truly defines him. But Thor's battle with Jormungandr isn't just about physical strength. It's also about the legacy he leaves behind. Thor is not just remembered for his battles, but for the way he fought them. He fought with purpose, with conviction, and with the understanding that every victory comes at a price. His story is one of resilience, of the Viking spirit that refused to be crushed, no matter how fierce the storm. And in that resilience, you find your own strength. As the winds pick up again, you feel the weight of Thor's legacy, the echo of his thunderous battles, and the realization that the fight is never truly over. Thor may have faced down the serpent, but he did so knowing that every battle only leads to the next. And that's what the Vikings understood. Life isn't about winning every battle, it's about how you fight, how you face the storm, and how you rise after each fall. Thor's struggle is your struggle too. The challenge isn't just in overcoming the obstacles in front of you. It's in accepting that those obstacles will never go away. And yet, in that acceptance, there's a strange kind of peace. The Vikings knew this, and they honored Thor. Not because he was invincible, but because he never stopped fighting. As the thunder grows louder, you realize that Thor's fight with Jormungandr is just one chapter in a never-ending saga. It's a story of strength, sacrifice, and the unyielding will to keep going, no matter the cost. And as you feel the power of the storm wash over you, you know that Thor's legacy will continue, echoing through the ages. The air has grown thick again, this time with a different kind of tension. The storm that was once distant now presses in, wrapping itself around you as if trying to whisper something ancient. But this isn't a battle of thunder or fire, it's a battle of mind and deceit. And standing in the eye of this storm is Loki, the trickster god whose very existence challenges everything you've come to understand about order and chaos. Loki, the shapeshifter, the liar, the manipulator, is the one god who doesn't fit the mold of the others. Unlike Thor or Odin, Loki is not defined by his strength, wisdom, or honor. His power lies in his cunning, in his ability to deceive, and in his mastery of chaos. His very nature is contradiction, both god and monster, both friend and foe. The Vikings may have revered the gods for their strength and wisdom, but they also understood that Loki's chaos was as much a part of their world as their order. After all, without chaos, how could order ever be truly defined? Loki's actions, for better or worse, are the catalyst for many of the most significant events in Norse mythology. His tricks, his schemes, are what lead to Ragnarok itself. Historians still argue whether Loki was simply a product of his nature, or if he played his role as a necessary force in the grand scheme of things. Was he merely a chaotic agent, wreaking havoc wherever he went, or was he the one who ultimately shaped the course of events to ensure that the cycle of destruction and rebirth continued? You find yourself thinking of the many faces Loki wears, his ever-changing nature. Loki can appear as a beautiful woman, a fearsome beast, or even a harmless child. He can charm, beguile, and deceive without a second thought. He's the kind of being who could convince you that the world is one thing, only to reveal a moment later that it was something entirely different. And it is this trait that makes Loki both fascinating and terrifying. Loki doesn't just cause trouble for the sake of it. He causes it because he enjoys it. Chaos for him is not just a byproduct of his actions, it's the very force that he embraces, the lens through which he sees the world. But as you look closer, you realize that Loki's trickery isn't just about making others suffer. There's a deeper complexity to his nature. His actions, though they often seem cruel or senseless, are a reflection of something more existential. Loki's role in Ragnarok is one of ultimate betrayal. He was once a blood brother to Odin, a companion. And yet, he will ultimately bring about the downfall of the gods he once stood beside. In the end, it's Loki's betrayal that ensures the gods' destruction. He frees the wolf Fenrir, setting in motion the events that lead to Odin's death. Why? Why does Loki, who once stood by Odin, betray him so completely? Some scholars believe it's because Loki could never accept the rigidity of the gods. His chaotic nature was at odds with the order the gods sought to impose. Loki couldn't exist in a world where everything was bound by rules. For him, chaos was the only true freedom. And perhaps in that sense, Loki is the truest reflection of human nature, the desire to break free from the chains of destiny, to embrace a world that exists without boundaries. Loki's role in Norse mythology isn't just that of a villain, but of a necessary force. The Viking people understood that chaos, in its purest form, is what makes the universe dynamic. It's what allows change to happen. Without Loki, the gods would never have been forced to confront their vulnerabilities, and without their vulnerabilities, the world would never change. In many ways, Loki is the engine of transformation. His betrayal is the catalyst that propels the gods into the final battle of Ragnarok. Without him, the cycle would be broken, and the gods would simply continue in their eternal, unchallenged reign. But perhaps there's a lesson here for you too. Loki teaches you that chaos isn't something to fear. It's not something to control, it's something to understand and embrace. The world is full of unexpected twists, of moments where things fall apart, where the world seems to shatter at the seams. But it's in those moments that transformation happens. Loki doesn't just bring destruction, he brings evolution. He's the force that shatters the status quo, forcing the gods to face their own limits and weaknesses. It's only through his chaos that the world can be rebuilt. And isn't that a strange kind of gift? As you stand in the eye of this storm, thinking about Loki's place in the world, you realize that he is both the destroyer and the creator. The destruction of the gods, the fall of Asgard, is not just an end, it's a necessary part of the cycle. The gods, for all their might, need Loki. Without his chaos, they would never evolve. And without evolution, there can be no growth, no rebirth, no future. Perhaps the lesson Loki offers is this: sometimes, the destruction of what we know is necessary to make way for something new. The Vikings understood this truth in their bones. Life is unpredictable. Chaos and order exist in a delicate balance. And Loki, with all his tricks and lies, is the embodiment of that balance. He is both the shadow and the light, the chaos and the order. And in this balance, the world turns again and again, in an endless cycle of destruction and rebirth. So, as you watch the storm swirl around you, you realize that Loki's legacy is not just in the destruction he causes, but in the transformation that follows. He is the reminder that change, no matter how painful, is necessary for growth. And in that growth, there's hope. The storm rages on, but now something feels different, more personal, more intimate. It's as if the winds themselves have whispered of another force, another power, one that isn't defined by brute strength, cunning tricks, or even sacrifice. No, this is the realm of love, war, and the delicate balance between them. Enter Freyr, the goddess of love, beauty, and war, whose actions and decisions carry the weight of both the heart and the sword. Freyr is not just another goddess in the Norse pantheon. She embodies the complexity of human emotions and the duality of life itself. She's both a fierce warrior and the ultimate symbol of affection, grace, and beauty. But there's something deeper beneath her flawless exterior, something that speaks to the struggles that we, too, face in balancing our personal desires with the demands of the world around us. And in her, you begin to see the true cost of power, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. Freya's story begins long before Ragnarok, and her influence stretches across the realms of gods and mortals alike. She is the leader of the Valkyries, the fierce warrior women who ride across the skies to choose the bravest warriors to take to Valhalla. But Freyr isn't just the orchestrator of Valhalla's warriors. She is also the goddess of love and fertility, an aspect of her personality that stands in stark contrast to her battle-hardened persona. This juxtaposition, her fierce role as a war leader and her tender role as a goddess of love, makes her one of the most complex figures in Norse mythology. Historians still debate the significance of Freya's dual nature. Was she meant to embody the unyielding connection between love and war, two forces that, on the surface, seem to be polar opposites? Or is Freyr a more tragic figure, someone who is forced to sacrifice love and affection for the sake of war and power? Perhaps it's both. The Vikings, who lived in a world of constant conflict, would have understood this duality well. Love and war are intertwined in their lives, just as they are in Freya's. Her story of sacrifice is both a romantic and a political one. Freyr, despite being a powerful goddess, was willing to sacrifice something precious in exchange for power, her heart. She gave herself to the giant, Thrym, in exchange for the return of Mjolnir, Thor's mighty hammer, which had been stolen. In this act, Freyr became more than just a figure of love. She became a symbol of what happens when love is intertwined with power and politics. The willingness to give up something dear for the greater good is not just an act of selflessness, it's also a reflection of the compromises that shape life itself. Freya's love story is more than just a tale of romance. It's a reflection of the complicated dance between desire and duty. Her willingness to enter into an uncomfortable agreement with Thrym, giant who represents everything she despises, reveals the deep complexities of her character. Love, as the Vikings understood, it is never simple. It's not about being with someone who is perfect or about being unconditionally loved. It's about navigating the harsh realities of the world, making difficult choices, and understanding that the pursuit of power often comes at the cost of personal happiness. But Freyja's sacrifices don't end with her forced union with Thrym. The goddess of love also pays a steep price for her power and influence. Her most beloved possession, the necklace of the Brisingamen, is a symbol of both her beauty and her power. This necklace, forged by 4 dwarfs, holds immense magical power capable of bringing its wearer immense strength and fortune. But, like everything else in Freyja's world, it comes with a price. In order to obtain the necklace, Freyja had to pay the ultimate price, a night of love with the dwarfs who made it. For a goddess whose very essence is love and beauty, this act may have been one of her greatest sacrifices, and yet, in Freyja's sacrifice lies a deeper truth about the world she inhabits and the one you live in. Her willingness to give herself for both love and power shows that everything comes at a cost. Whether it's the love of a partner, the acquisition of power, or even the pursuit of beauty, there are always consequences. Nothing in this world is free, and Freyja, despite being a goddess, is not exempt from the laws of sacrifice. Her story serves as a reminder that love and war are never simple. Both are forces that shape the world, each leaving its mark on the heart of those who wield them. And yet, Freyja's story is not one of total loss. Though she sacrifices her heart in the name of power and protection, she ultimately learns that love can also be a powerful tool in shaping the future. As a Valkyrie, she chooses the warriors who will fight and die in battle, sending them to Valhalla where they will feast until Ragnarok. In this act, Freyja wields love and war simultaneously, choosing those who will shape the future through both their love of battle and their ability to fight for what they believe in. The Vikings, who placed so much value on honor and sacrifice, would have understood Freyja's journey. Her story is a reflection of the human experience, the constant balancing act between love, duty, and sacrifice. In her, you see that the pursuit of love and power, while often conflicting, are inextricably linked. Freyja's life is a testament to the truth that the strongest forces in this world are often the most complicated, the most fraught with sacrifice. And in her sacrifices, she finds the strength to guide warriors to build the future and to face the end of all things. Ragnarok. As you stand here, watching the storm swirl around you, you realize that Freyja's struggle is not so different from your own. The choices you make, whether in love, power, or personal sacrifice, carry weight. And as much as we may want to deny it, those choices shape the world around us. Freyja, with all her complexity, teaches us that love and war are not opposites. They are the forces that drive us, the forces that create change. Without them, there is no life, no growth, no future. The storm has reached its peak now, lightning crackling overhead as the thunder rumbles through the air, shaking the very earth beneath your feet. But amidst the chaos, there's a new force, a new presence in this world of gods and giants. The Valkyries, fierce warrior women who ride across the skies, choosing the bravest of warriors to take to Valhalla. These women, chosen by Freyja herself, are as much a part of the Viking legend as Odin, Thor, and the rest of the gods. And yet, their story is often overshadowed by their male counterparts. But not tonight. The Valkyries are not just servants of the gods. They are warriors in their own right. They are the ones who choose who will live and who will die in battle, deciding the fate of countless warriors. They are the ones who will take the fallen heroes to the great hall of Valhalla, where they will feast and prepare for the final battle of Ragnarok. But their role isn't just about picking who gets to feast with the gods. They are symbols of the warrior spirit, of the strength and bravery that define the Viking people. Historians still argue about the role of the Valkyries in Viking culture. Some believe they were seen as divine agents, sent by the gods to guide warriors to their rightful place in the afterlife. Others believe the Valkyries represented the ideals of the warrior class, the women who took up arms in defense of their people, who were as strong and capable as any man in battle. But one thing is certain: the Valkyries were no mere bystanders in the world of Norse mythology. They were active participants in the grand narrative, shaping the future of the gods and mankind alike. You stand there, watching the Valkyries as they ride across the storm-darkened sky, their wings spread wide as they soar through the air. Their armor glows with the light of the setting sun, their spears raised high in preparation for battle. You can feel the power that radiates from them. These women are warriors, pure and simple. They are the embodiment of strength, resilience, and courage. And yet, they are also something more. They are the protectors of the fallen, the guardians of honor and glory. In their hands lies the fate of those who have fought bravely on the battlefield, their souls forever linked to the warriors they choose. The Valkyries' role in Norse mythology is far from simple. They are not just the bringers of death. They are the ones who ensure that the most honorable of warriors are chosen to join the gods in Valhalla. But their work is not without its emotional cost. Choosing who lives and who dies is not an easy task, and it's one that carries a heavy burden. The Valkyries must make decisions that will affect the lives of countless warriors, deciding who is worthy of joining the gods and who must fall. It's a responsibility that requires both strength and compassion, qualities that define the Valkyries as more than just fighters. They are the arbiters of fate, tasked with ensuring that those who are worthy of a hero's death are given the honor they deserve. And in the midst of all this chaos, there's a sense of something deeper, something that resonates with you on a personal level. The Valkyries, with their strength and their duty, are more than just mythical figures. They represent something fundamental about the human condition, the idea that our actions in life are what define our worth in death. The Valkyries choose those who will join the gods, but they also embody the idea that it is our bravery, our courage, and our honor that determine our legacy. In their hands we see the reflection of our own struggles, our own battles. But there's more to the Valkyries than just their role in choosing the fallen warriors. They also represent the warrior spirit that resides within us all, regardless of gender. In the Viking world, women were not just passive figures, they were warriors, leaders and fighters, taking on the same duties as the men. They fought to protect their people, to defend their homes, and to ensure the survival of their culture. The Valkyries, in this sense, represent the strength and resilience of women in Viking society, women who were as fierce and capable as any man on the battlefield. And in their story, you see the reflection of a world where strength was valued above all else, where warriors were defined by their courage and their ability to fight, regardless of whether they were men or women. As you stand there, watching the Valkyries soar through the storm-dark sky, you begin to realize that their story is more than just about battle. It's about the eternal struggle to find meaning in a world that is constantly changing. The Valkyries are the ones who choose the heroes, but they are also the ones who remind us that honor, courage, and strength are the true measures of a warrior's worth. And as the storm rages around you, you can't help but feel a sense of connection to these fierce women, to their strength, to their bravery. In the world of the Vikings, the Valkyries were not just figures of myth, they were representations of the warrior spirit that burned bright in every Viking heart. They are the women who fought alongside the men, who stood as equals in battle, and who played a crucial role in shaping the future of their world. And as you stand here, watching their wings beat against the storm, you realize that their story is not just one of ancient myth, it's a story that resonates deeply with you too. The Valkyries are the embodiment of everything the Viking people held dear: honor, bravery, and the unbreakable will to fight for what is right. As the Valkyries disappear into the horizon, you can't help but feel the echo of their strength, their resolve, Their legacy will live on, not just in the legends, but in the hearts of those who continue to fight for honor, for glory, and for a place in the halls of Valhalla. The storm is subsiding now, its rage turning to a whispering breeze as the heavens clear. Yet, the echoes of the Valkyrie's wings still linger, vibrating in your bones. You feel something shift in the air, something far older and more primal. The ground beneath your feet seems to pulse with ancient power, and you begin to understand that the story of the Vikings, of gods and giants, is not just a history of battles, but a tale that transcends time. A tale of giants, forces of nature, that stand as both opposition and reflection of the gods. Among the oldest and most feared of these giants are the Jotnar, the giants of Jotunheim. These beings are not mere monsters. They are the natural forces of the world, the very embodiment of chaos and destruction that the gods must constantly fight against to maintain the order of the 9 realms. The Jotnar are not bound by the same rules that govern the gods. They are creatures of the wild, of untamed nature, and they stand as the dark mirror to the order the gods wish to create. You feel the presence of the Jotnar before you see them. There's a chill in the air, an unnerving silence that fills the world around you. The wind howls as a great shadow stretches across the land, and from that shadow emerges one of the Jotnar, a massive being, towering and fierce, its eyes glowing with ancient power. The Jotnar are not just beings of strength. They are the embodiment of primal forces, storms, earthquakes, fires, floods, every natural disaster that threatens the balance of life. They are the true disruptors, the ones who break the peace that the gods desperately try to uphold. The history between the gods and the Jotnar is one of endless conflict. The gods, despite their divine might, are forever at odds with the Jotnar, seeking to contain their chaos, to impose order on a world that resists it. Yet, despite this constant clash, there's a paradox that lies at the heart of the Jotnar's existence. They are as much a part of the world as the gods themselves. Without the Jotnar, the gods' very rule would lack meaning. The Jotnar are the necessary opposite to the gods. Without them, there could be no balance, no true understanding of what it means to be powerful, to be wise, or to be brave. Historians still argue whether the Jotnar were meant to symbolize the destructive forces of nature that the Vikings feared and respected, or whether they were simply an embodiment of chaos for chaos's sake. Perhaps it's a little of both. After all, the Vikings lived in a world where the forces of nature were both their greatest adversary and their greatest teacher. They relied on the land, the sea, and the weather to survive, but they also knew how quickly those forces could turn against them. The Jotnar, in this sense, were a reflection of that very truth. The story of the Jotnar and the gods is one of opposition, but it's also one of mutual dependence. The gods and the Jotnar cannot exist without each other. The gods represent order, but order is meaningless without the chaos of the Jotnar. The giants, in their raw power, remind the gods of their limits, of the tenuousness of their reign. They are the storm that tests the strength of the gods' walls, and as much as the gods fight against them, they can never fully destroy them. For the Jotnar are as eternal as the very forces of nature they embody. You feel the weight of this realization sink in as you watch the giant before you. It is not a monster to be defeated. It is a force to be understood, to be respected. The Jotnar do not die. They are cyclical, like the forces of nature itself. They may be banished or defeated for a time, but they will always return, for they are part of the natural order. The gods cannot destroy them, because to do so would be to destroy part of the world itself. The Jotnar are both a threat and a necessary evil. Their chaos is the catalyst for the gods to prove their strength, to defend what they have built. This paradox is central to the Viking worldview. The gods and the Jotnar are two sides of the same coin. They are opposing forces, yes, but they are also complementary. In order for the gods to maintain their reign, they must constantly face the Jotnar and the forces they represent. And in order for the Jotnar to remain powerful, they must continue to challenge the gods, to push them to their limits. Without this eternal struggle, the world would become stagnant, and life would lose its meaning. And as you stand here, feeling the tremors of the Jotnar's power beneath your feet, you begin to understand that their story is not just a myth, it's a reflection of the struggle within each of us. We all have forces of chaos in our lives, struggles, challenges, obstacles that threaten to overwhelm us. And yet, like the gods, we must face these forces head-on. We must confront them with strength and wisdom, knowing that we cannot control everything, but that we can choose how we respond. The Jotnar, in all their destructive might, are a reminder that life is never without challenge, never without danger. But it is in facing these challenges, in enduring the storms, that we truly grow. The Jotnar's presence is a call to action. They are the reminder that chaos will always be a part of life, but so too is the potential for change. The gods may be destined to clash with them forever, but in that struggle lies the power to transform. And perhaps in your own life, the same holds true. The chaos you face, the difficulties that seem insurmountable, are not simply obstacles. They are the forces that shape you, that force you to grow, to become stronger. As the Jotnar fades into the distance, their form swallowed by the mist, you realize that they, like the gods, are part of something far greater. They are the embodiment of life's unrelenting challenges, and the gods are the ones who rise to meet them, time and again. This struggle, this eternal conflict, is what shapes the world and what shapes you. The storm has broken now, leaving the sky clear and filled with a strange quiet. There's a stillness in the air, as if the world itself is waiting, holding its breath for what comes next. The echoes of the Jotnar's presence still linger, their power reverberating in your chest. But now, in the calm that follows the storm, you realize that the real battle, the most important one, is yet to come. And it begins with one of the most terrifying and revered figures in all of Viking lore, Beowulf. The name Beowulf isn't just a title. It's a legend, a beacon of what it means to be the ultimate hero. His story isn't just about strength or glory, it's about the internal struggle every warrior faces when confronted with their greatest fears. Beowulf is not simply a hero because of his feats. He is a hero because he faces the darkness within himself and, in doing so, proves what it truly means to be a warrior. Beowulf's tale begins with a monster, Grendel, a creature of darkness and destruction who terrorizes the kingdom of the Danes. But this monster isn't just a physical adversary, it's a symbol of the chaos and evil that lurks in every corner of the world. And Beowulf, with all his strength, faces Grendel not for fame or riches, but because it's the right thing to do. In his battle with Grendel, Beowulf demonstrates the Viking ethos, the belief that a hero's worth isn't measured by what he gains, but by what he sacrifices. Historians still debate whether Beowulf's fight with Grendel was meant to represent a battle with external evil, or whether it was a reflection of Beowulf's internal conflict. Was Grendel a literal monster, or was he a manifestation of Beowulf's own struggles with fear, doubt, and mortality? Perhaps it's both. Beowulf's fight with Grendel is a battle that takes place not just in the physical world, but within Beowulf's soul. And it's in this internal struggle that Beowulf becomes the ultimate hero, a figure who isn't defined by his victories, but by his ability to face his darkest fears and continue moving forward. In this battle, you realize that it's not just Beowulf who must face his inner darkness. All of us must. We all have monsters, internal and external, that we must confront. The Vikings understood this better than most. They lived in a world where danger was ever present, and death was always lurking, just around the corner. But they also understood that heroism isn't just about fighting enemies. It's about confronting your own weaknesses and fears. Beowulf's fight with Grendel is a reflection of that, a reminder that true strength comes not from the weapons you wield, but from the courage you show in the face of fear. And yet, Beowulf's battle with Grendel is just the beginning. After defeating the monster, Beowulf goes on to face even greater threats, the dragon, the very symbol of greed and destruction. This battle is different though. It's not just about strength or bravery. It's about understanding that every battle comes at a cost. In fighting the dragon, Beowulf doesn't just face a physical foe, he faces his own mortality. The dragon's fire, the flames of destruction, are not just an external threat. They are a reminder that no one, not even the greatest hero, can escape the ravages of time. Beowulf's final battle with the dragon is a stark contrast to his earlier victories. This time, he is older, wiser, and yet more vulnerable. The strength that carried him through his earlier triumphs is now waning, and the dragon's fire burns hotter than anything he's ever faced. Beowulf's fight with the dragon is not just a battle of physical strength. It's a battle with the inevitable. And it's in this final fight that Beowulf's true heroism is revealed, not in his victory over the dragon, but in his acceptance of death. He knows that he is facing his final moments, but he continues to fight. He does so not for glory, but because it's his duty. In his death, Beowulf teaches you something powerful about life, that the real measure of a hero is not the battles they win, but the ones they fight when they know they can't win. Beowulf's death isn't a defeat, it's the culmination of a life lived with honor and courage. His final battle is a reminder that no matter how strong we are, no matter how brave, we all must face our own end. But it is how we face that, and how we confront the inevitability of death, that defines us. As the dragon's fire consumes him, you understand that Beowulf's story is not just a tale of conquest, it's a story of acceptance. It's about knowing that we will all face our own battles, and that not every battle can be won. But in those battles, in our struggles, we find our true strength. Beowulf's legacy isn't just in his victories. It's in his unwavering resolve to face whatever comes, no matter the cost. And as you stand here, watching the remnants of the battle fade into the distance, you realize that Beowulf's story is your story too. You may not fight dragons or monsters, but you will face your own struggles, your own fears. And in those moments, you can choose to be like Beowulf, to face the darkness, to fight when all seems lost, and to find strength in the knowledge that, even in the face of death, heroism is not defined by what you conquer, but by what you endure. As the embers of Beowulf's battle fade into the shadows, you feel the weight of his journey sink in. His story, one of unyielding bravery and inevitable loss, speaks not just to the warrior's heart, but to the universal experience of facing one's fate. The Viking saga, however, doesn't end with Beowulf's heroic death. In the tapestry of their legends, there is another figure whose journey intertwines with themes of power, greed, and the relentless pursuit of something more. This figure is none other than Sigurd, the dragon slayer, whose tale is one of valor and greed, a story that comes to define the price of ambition. Sigurd's journey begins with the acquisition of Fafnir's treasure, a hoard guarded by the fearsome dragon, Fafnir. Fafnir, once a dwarf, was transformed into a monster by his insatiable greed for gold. In his greed, he sacrificed everything: his kin, his love, and eventually, his humanity. And Sigurd, driven by his own ambition and desire for glory, kills Fafnir and takes the treasure for himself. But in doing so, Sigurd inadvertently takes on the curse that comes with it, curse of greed and death that will shape his destiny. Historians still debate whether Sigurd's story is a tale of heroism or one of tragic flaw. On one hand, Sigurd is a classic hero, a warrior who slays the dragon and wins the treasure. On the other hand, his ambition and desire for the hoard ultimately lead to his downfall. The curse of the treasure poisons him, driving him to make choices that will bring about his tragic end. In his greed for the treasure, Sigurd mirrors Fafnir's own descent into corruption. He too becomes consumed by the very thing that once gave him power. In this moment, as you contemplate Sigurd's fate, you realize something deeply human about his story. The pursuit of wealth and power, while alluring, is fraught with danger. Sigurd's actions remind you that the line between heroism and folly is often razor-thin. He begins his journey with noble intentions. He wants to prove his strength and his worth. But somewhere along the way, his pursuit of the dragon's treasure blinds him to the true cost of his ambition. The treasure Sigurd acquires, like all treasure, holds both power and corruption. The Vikings saw treasure not just as material wealth, but as a reflection of the desires and flaws of those who sought it. Fafnir's curse is not just a literal one. It is symbolic of the dangers that come with the insatiable hunger for more. Sigurd's tragedy lies not in his battle with the dragon, but in his inability to see the consequences of his greed. What he thought would bring him glory and security instead brings him death. Sigurd's story is not just one of external conflict. It's a mirror of the internal battles we all face. The desire for success, the need to prove ourselves, hunger for recognition, these are all forces that can drive us to great heights. But they can also consume us, blinding us to the things that truly matter. Sigurd's downfall is a cautionary tale about the dangers of ambition without understanding its consequences. He seeks the treasure, believing it will bring him fulfillment. But in the end, it is the treasure that brings him to ruin. But there is something redemptive in Sigurd's story as well. Even as he succumbs to the curse of greed, he remains a figure of great strength and courage. He is a warrior who faces dragons, who confronts death, and who earns his place among the greatest of heroes. Sigurd's tale is a reminder that even in our flaws, even in our struggles, there is heroism. He doesn't achieve greatness by avoiding the darkness, but by confronting it head-on. His story teaches you that while our desires can lead us astray, it is through our struggles that we find the true measure of our strength. As you stand there, contemplating the legacy of Sigurd, you understand that his story is not just about a dragon or a treasure. It's about the eternal struggle between our higher aspirations and our lower impulses. Sigurd's greatest battle was not against Fafnir, but against the darker parts of himself. And in that battle, he reminds you that the path to greatness is never clear-cut. It is a path filled with temptation, with greed, and with the constant threat of losing sight of what truly matters. Sigurd's tale is a warning, yes, but it is also a call to action. It reminds you that the pursuit of greatness, whether through wealth, power, or fame, must be tempered by wisdom and understanding. For, like Sigurd, we can all fall prey to our own desires if we are not careful. But unlike Sigurd, you have the opportunity to learn from his mistakes. You have the chance to seek not just victory, but balance. To fight the dragons in your life without losing sight of what truly matters. As Sigurd's story fades into the night, and the weight of his choices hangs in the air, you realize that his tale isn't just a myth. It's a reflection of your own journey. Every quest, every battle you face, carries with it the potential for both greatness and destruction. The question isn't whether you will encounter dragons, it's how you will choose to fight them. And ultimately, how you will choose to live with the consequences. As the storm recedes into memory and the winds subside, a new calm settles in, one not of peace, but of anticipation. The quiet after the storm is never truly silent. It is filled with the weight of what is to come. And what comes next in the saga of the Vikings is a story not of battle, not of treasure or dragons, but of the most powerful force in all of Norse mythology, the sacrifice of Freyr, the god of peace and prosperity. Freyr is not a warrior like Thor or Odin, nor is he a trickster like Loki. He is a god of fertility, abundance, and peace. His role in the Norse pantheon, while crucial, is often overlooked compared to the thunderous battles of other gods. Yet, in his story lies a powerful lesson about the costs of peace, and the lengths one must go to in order to preserve it. Freyr is a god who embodies the very principles of balance between life and death. War and peace, abundance and sacrifice. Freya's brother. Freyr's story is one of sacrifice that goes beyond what any other god was willing to give. He is born into the family of the Vanir, a race of gods associated with fertility and prosperity, and he inherits not only their traits but their burdens. When the Vanir and the Aesir gods Odin's tribe waged war, Freyr played an important role in ending the conflict. He is part of the peace treaty that bound the two races of gods together. And yet, despite his association with peace, Freyr's fate is sealed by a single, extraordinary choice. He sacrifices his sword, the very weapon that could defend him, to win the heart of a giantess named Gur. Historians still debate the true significance of Freyr's sacrifice. Was it a story of romantic love, a demonstration of the lengths one will go to for the woman he loves? Or was it a deeper commentary on the sacrifices required for peace? In sacrificing his sword, Freyr removes his ability to defend himself, an irreversible act. This decision marks the beginning of his eventual downfall, as it is foretold that, without his sword, Freyr will be powerless when the time comes for Ragnarok. In the end, the god of peace and prosperity is killed, not by a force of chaos or war, but by his own vulnerability created by his sacrifice. The Vikings who lived in a world of constant warfare and strife would have understood the dual nature of Freyr's sacrifice. He represents the hope for peace in a world torn by conflict, but he also represents the price of that peace. The message of Freyr's story is clear. Peace is not won by strength alone. It requires compromise, sacrifice, and the willingness to give up something of great personal value. Freyr, in his final moments, becomes a symbol of this bittersweet truth. His sacrifice of his sword, the very tool that could have saved him, highlights the tragic cost of peace, especially in a world where war is always just around the corner. As you stand in the quiet aftermath of Freyr's tale, you begin to reflect on the true cost of peace in your own life. Like Freyr, many of us must make difficult choices to preserve the harmony we seek, whether in our relationships, our careers, or our personal goals. There's always a price to be paid when we choose peace over conflict, when we sacrifice a part of ourselves to ensure that others can live without the constant threat of war. But Freyr's story also holds another lesson. His willingness to give up his sword for love, for peace, shows that even the greatest warriors must sometimes put down their weapons. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is choose not to fight. Freyr's choice to give up his sword was not an act of weakness, it was an act of strength. It was a recognition that, in some battles, the true victory lies not in the fight itself, but in what you are willing to sacrifice to protect the peace that you hold dear. The Vikings understood the complexity of this message. They lived in a world where battles were fought daily, and where peace was often a fleeting ideal, something to be fought for just as fiercely as any conquest. They knew that the true strength of a warrior was not just in the ability to wield a sword, but in the wisdom to know when to lay it down. And Freyr's story embodies this truth. Peace requires sacrifice, and sometimes the cost of peace is higher than we are willing to admit. Freyr's sacrifice, his loss of power, and his eventual death at Ragnarok are not just a sad tale. They are a warning. They are a reminder that every decision we make, no matter how noble or well-intentioned, carries consequences. Freyr chose peace over power, love over strength, and in doing so, he paid the ultimate price. His death at Ragnarok, while tragic, is not without meaning. It is a symbol of the eternal cycle that the Vikings understood so well, that every life, no matter how powerful or peaceful, must eventually face its end. As you reflect on Freyr's sacrifice, you realize that peace is a delicate thing, fragile and fleeting. It is something that must be guarded, but it is also something that demands sacrifice. Freyr's story teaches you that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in fighting, but in the ability to walk away from battle, to make the choice to Protect what you love, even if it means giving up something of your own. In the quiet aftermath of his sacrifice, as the winds die down and the storm of Ragnarok approaches, you understand that the true cost of peace is not just in what you give up, but in what you are willing to endure to preserve it. Like Freyr, you must decide what you are willing to sacrifice for the peace you seek. The silence after Freyr's tale is heavy, as if the very air is filled with the weight of his sacrifice. But in this stillness, there's an undeniable undercurrent of tension, of something on the horizon, a looming threat that is always just out of reach. You can feel it in the way the ground beneath your feet seems to pulse with impending change, with the inevitability of something greater than any of the gods, something that will shake the 9 realms to their very core. And that something is the serpent Jormungandr, the world serpent, whose arrival signals the beginning of the end. Jormungandr is not just a monster, he is the embodiment of chaos, of the forces that threaten to unravel the very fabric of existence. This massive serpent, so large that it encircles the entire world, is bound to the fate of the gods, and his final clash with Thor at Ragnarok is as inevitable as the changing of seasons. But Jormungandr is more than just a physical foe. He is the force that challenges the gods' very order, and in his story, you see a reflection of the darker forces that we all must face, forces that seem insurmountable, yet are inseparable from the world we inhabit. The serpent's origins are steeped in the chaotic forces of the universe. Born to Loki and the giantess Angrboda, Jormungandr is one of the 3 monstrous children that Loki fathered, each of them representing a different form of destruction. His siblings, Fenrir, the great wolf, and Hel, the ruler of the underworld, are just as dangerous in their own right. But Jormungandr, with his massive size and venomous bite, is perhaps the most terrifying of them all. He is a symbol of nature's raw, uncontrollable power, a force that, once unleashed, cannot be tamed. Historians still debate whether Jormungandr represents the untamable aspects of nature, or whether he is a symbol of the internal chaos that exists within all of us. His size and venom are metaphorical of the destructive potential that lies dormant, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Like the serpent, we too are capable of causing destruction when we allow chaos to overtake us. The Vikings, who lived in a world constantly threatened by the forces of nature, would have understood this symbolism deeply. The sea, the storms, the wild animals, these were forces that could destroy everything in an instant. And in Jormungandr, these forces are given form. Jormungandr's story is intertwined with that of Thor, the god who is both his foe and his equal. Thor, armed with his hammer Mjolnir, is the one who must face the serpent when the time comes. But this is no simple battle. It is the culmination of a long-standing conflict between the forces of order and chaos. Thor and Jormungandr are 2 sides of the same coin, both essential to the balance of the universe. But in their clash, the balance will tip, and the destruction that follows will be total. The battle between Thor and Jormungandr at Ragnarok is more than just a physical fight. It is the ultimate confrontation between opposing forces. Thor represents the strength and order of the gods, the guardians of stability, while Jormungandr embodies the chaotic forces of nature that threaten to tear everything apart. But there is a deeper lesson to be learned here. The true battle is not between the gods and the monsters. It is between order and chaos, between creation and destruction. It is a reminder that no matter how strong the gods may be, they cannot escape the forces that seek to undo them. As you stand there, feeling the ground tremble beneath you, you realize that Jormungandr's arrival is not just about the gods, it's about the human experience. We too face our own world serpent's forces of chaos that threaten to unravel the carefully constructed order of our lives. The serpent doesn't just represent an external threat. He's the manifestation of the fears, the doubts, and the forces of destruction that live within us. The conflict between Thor and Jormungandr is not just a battle between gods. It is a metaphor for the internal struggles we face when we confront our own chaos. Thor's final battle with Jormungandr is tragic because, for all his strength, Thor cannot escape his fate. Despite landing a blow that slays the serpent, Thor is poisoned by Jormungandr's venom and he dies shortly after. His victory, though noble, comes at a great personal cost. This is the lesson of the serpent, even the strongest must eventually face their own vulnerability. Thor's power, his might, and his courage are not enough to prevent the inevitable. He, too, must succumb to fate. Jormungandr's death is equally significant. While he represents the destructive forces of the world, his death marks the end of an era, the end of the old order. The serpent's passing, along with the death of the gods, signals the coming of a new world. But as with all things in the Viking worldview, this new world is not born without struggle. Jormungandr's death is not the end of chaos. It is the beginning of a new cycle, one that will inevitably lead to another conflict, another battle between order and chaos. As you contemplate the significance of Jormungandr's role in the story of Ragnarok, you realize that he is more than just a monster to be defeated. He is a force of nature, a reminder that chaos is an intrinsic part of the world. The gods may seek to maintain order, but they cannot escape the forces that threaten to destroy them. And as much as they fight against Jormungandr, they cannot avoid the inevitable destruction that will come. In the end, the serpent's story is a reflection of the world we live in, chaotic, unpredictable, and often terrifying. But it is also a reminder that, even in the face of destruction, there's a possibility for rebirth. The serpent may fall, but the cycle of life, death, and renewal will continue, as it always has. The battle between order and chaos may be eternal, but it is in that struggle that the world finds its meaning. The winds are still, the storm seems to have passed, but a heavy silence lingers in the air, one filled with the unsettling knowledge that the end is near. The clash between order and chaos has been waged for eons, and the world stands at the precipice of transformation. You can almost hear the faint sounds of fate closing in, the moment where everything will either collapse or be remade. As you stand at the edge of this mythic battle, you understand that the story of Ragnarok isn't just the tale of gods and giants. It's a story of sacrifice, destruction, and ultimate rebirth. And now, another god must face his destiny. Enter Hel, the daughter of Loki, who rules the underworld and the dead. Hel's domain is not one of torment or fiery damnation, but a cold, dreary place where the souls of those who die of sickness or old age dwell, waiting for the final day. Hel is a complex figure in Norse mythology, a goddess of death, yet not evil in the traditional sense. In fact, she holds a unique and powerful role in the pantheon, as the keeper of the souls that neither go to Valhalla nor are claimed by the warriors of the gods. She governs the realm of death, not as an adversary to the gods, but as a necessary part of the cosmic balance. Hel's presence in the myths is unsettling. Her cold realm, where the dead are kept, is a place where neither war nor the glory of battle can reach. The souls here are not given the honor of a heroic death, nor the fire of a warrior's victory. They are left to drift in the stillness, a quiet reminder that not all deaths are noble, not all lives are lived for a greater purpose. Hel's rule over this place shows that death, too, is part of the world's balance. She is a goddess who doesn't seek to destroy, but to preserve the natural order of life and death. In Norse cosmology, death is inevitable and, in some sense, a necessary step in the cycle of life. Hel's kingdom, despite its desolate and grim nature, reflects the Viking understanding of death. It's neither to be feared nor glorified, but accepted as an essential part of the universe. Historians still debate Hel's true nature in Viking thought. Was she a symbol of the inevitability of death, or was she a figure who represented the moral ambiguity of mortality? For the Vikings, she likely symbolized both. She was the ultimate reminder that death, no matter how it comes, is impartial. Hell does not discriminate. She rules over the dead without judgment, and it is her impartiality that makes her role both crucial and ominous. Hell's own story is intertwined with the coming of Ragnarok. She is the one who commands the army of the dead, the forces that will rise against the gods when the final battle begins. In this way, she represents the inevitability of death's final rebellion against life. In the Ragnarok prophecies, Hell's forces are set to march against the gods, leading the dead to their doom. Her army will storm the fields of battle, their numbers endless, and her own role in the final days will be crucial. But while Hell may lead the charge, she is not just a force of destruction. She is a force of renewal. For when the old world dies, a new world will be born, and death is the gateway to that transformation. Hell's story is one of inevitability and mercy. She is a figure who embodies the delicate balance between life and death, showing that neither can exist without the other. The gods may fight to preserve their world, but they cannot stop what is inevitable. Death comes for everyone, and no amount of power or strength can prevent it. But in this inevitability, there is hope. The Vikings understood that even death, in its finality, is part of the cycle that drives the world forward. It is the end, yes, but also the beginning of something new. As you reflect on Hell's place in the world of the gods, you realize that her story is not one of vengeance or malice, but of acceptance and balance. Her power lies not in her ability to destroy, but in her role as a keeper of the dead. She teaches you that death is not the end, it is a transition, a passage to another realm, another state of being. Hell's domain is not a place of torment, but of peace, where the souls of those who have lived their lives quietly, without the glory of battle or the song of the skalds, find their rest. In the coming battle of Ragnarok, Hell's forces will play a pivotal role in bringing the gods to their end. But there is something beautiful in that. Hell, as the ruler of the dead, is the final arbiter of the gods' fate. She is the one who will decide whether they will continue to exist, or whether they too must be swept away in the tide of change. And in this act, you understand that Hell is not just a goddess of death, she is a goddess of rebirth. For without death, there can be no new life. Without the dead, there can be no new beginning. As the winds begin to shift once more, you understand that Hell's role in this world is not one of destruction, but of renewal. She is the keeper of the passage between worlds, the one who guides the souls of the departed to their resting places. And in doing so, she creates the space for new life to emerge. And as you stand here in the quiet after the storm, you realize that death, in all its forms, is not something to be feared. It is part of the natural cycle of existence. In accepting death, we make way for new life. In facing it, we find the courage to embrace the change that comes with it. Hell's story reminds you that, just as the gods must face their end, so too must we face our own mortality. But in that facing, there is freedom, there is peace, and there is the promise of something new. As the echoes of Hell's realm settle into the quietude, another force stirs in the distance, a rumble that shakes the very foundations of the 9 realms. You can feel it in your bones, the anticipation of what's to come. The air is thick with it, charged with the raw energy of the inevitable. It's the pulse of the land, the steady beat that reverberates through the very fabric of existence. This is the moment where the end begins, not with the gods, nor with the giants, but with the darkness itself, the arrival of Surtur, the fire giant. Surtur is not just a creature of fire. He is the embodiment of destruction and renewal. His very name means black or swarthy, a fitting moniker for a being whose arrival signals the end of all things burning, consuming, and remaking the world. The fire giant is the harbinger of the final destruction of the gods, a creature so powerful that his very presence can reduce Asgard to ash. But Surtur's power is not just in the fire he wields. It is in the promise of a new beginning. born from the ashes of the old world. Historians still wrestle with the meaning of Surtur in Viking mythology. Is he the embodiment of the destructive forces of nature, representing the fire that consumes? Or is he something more, something necessary to the cycle of creation and destruction? Surtur's role in Ragnarok is to bring the flames of destruction to the gods, to tear down what they have built, and to leave nothing standing. But in that destruction, there's the possibility of something new, something reborn from the ashes. The Vikings understood that fire, while destructive, is also a cleansing force, one that clears the way for new growth. Surtur is not just the end of the gods. He is the catalyst for the creation of a new world, one free from the corruption and stagnation that had taken root in the old. As Surtur's fire spreads, consuming everything in its path, you realize that this is the true nature of destruction. It is not an end in itself, but a necessary step in the cycle of life. The fire that Surtur brings is not meant to destroy for the sake of destruction. It is meant to purify, to cleanse, to make way for what comes after. The gods, despite their might, are not immune to the ravages of time. They too must be swept away, their reign replaced by a new order, a new world that will rise from the ashes of the old. Surtur's arrival is the final confirmation that Ragnarok is inevitable. The gods have fought, struggled, and sacrificed, but in the end, they cannot escape their fate. Surtur will come, and with him, the fire that will consume them all. But even in the face of such overwhelming destruction, there's a strange comfort in knowing that this is not the end. The Vikings understood this truth deeply, that destruction is not the final word. It is simply the beginning of a new cycle, a new creation. Without Surtur, there would be no rebirth. Without the fire, there would be no new life. The flames of Surtur's sword will consume the world, and with it, the gods will fall. Odin will perish at the jaws of Fenrir. Thor will die from the poison of Jormungandr, and all that the gods have built will be reduced to nothing. But from the ashes, a new world will rise, one that will be free from the corruption of the past. In this world, the survivors will rebuild, and life will continue, but in a different form. Surtur's destruction, while tragic, is also a necessary force, a force that allows for change, for transformation, for the birth of something new. As you feel the heat of Surtur's fire begin to encircle you, you realize that this is not just the end of the gods, it is the end of an era, a moment in time that is now giving way to something else. The fire is both cleansing and destructive, but it is also a force of renewal. The world that comes after Ragnarok will be different, but it will also be a world full of potential. Just as Surtur's flames burn away the old, they also clear the path for new growth, new life, and new hope. The fire of Surtur is not just a weapon, it is the symbol of change, of the inevitability of transformation, of the truth that everything must end so that something new can begin. As the fire consumes all in its path, you understand that this is the eternal cycle of the Viking worldview: creation, destruction, and rebirth. The gods, in all their glory, are not immune to the forces that drive the world forward. They, too, must fall, and in their fall, they make way for the new world to rise. And as you stand on the edge of this fiery destruction, you realize that this is not just a myth, it is a reflection of life itself. We too face moments of destruction, moments where we must let go of the past in order to embrace the future. But in those moments, there is hope. There is the possibility of rebirth. Surtur's fire will burn everything to the ground, but in that fire, there is the potential for something new, something better, something more true. And when the flames finally subside, the world will be free from the old order, and a new era will begin. This is the promise of Ragnarok. The world will end, but it will also rise again, stronger and purer than before. The world is burning. The flames of Surtur, the fire giant, crackle and writhe like serpents, consuming everything in their path. You feel the heat searing through the air, the air itself thick with the acrid scent of ash. The heavens have split, and the earth beneath you trembles, its foundation shaking with the fury of the final battle. This is the climax of the Viking mythos Ragnarok, the end of all things, where gods, giants, and mortals alike are caught in the maelstrom of destruction. But even in this cataclysmic moment, there is a whisper of something more. Amidst the flames, amid the chaos, you begin to understand that the end is not truly an end at all. It is merely a transition, a threshold between two worlds. As the last remnants of the old world crumble to ash, something new stirs in the silence that follows. From the ruins of Ragnarok, the seeds of a new world are sown. The gods, for all their might, have fallen. Odin has been devoured by Fenrir. Thor has succumbed to the poison of Jormungandr, and Freyr's sacrifice has cost him his life. The great halls of Asgard lie in ruins, their once proud walls reduced to rubble. The giants have marched, their numbers too great for the gods to withstand. And yet, even as everything seems lost, you begin to sense that this destruction is not the final word. There is something more, something that lies beyond the fire, beyond the chaos. As the flames of Surtur's sword flicker out, and the dust of the fallen settles into the ground, you begin to see a glimpse of the future, a new world rising from the ashes of the old. The survivors of Ragnarok, those few who have withstood the chaos, those who have endured the fire and the flood, will rebuild, just as the Vikings themselves once rebuilt after every battle, every raid, every struggle. From the ruins of the gods' fall, a new order will emerge, one that is free from the corruption and decay of the past. But what is this new world? What does it look like, now that the old gods have perished, and the giants have been vanquished? In the aftermath of Ragnarok, the world will be reborn. Yes, but it will not be the same as it was before. The world will be purged of its old flaws, its old mistakes, and from this destruction, something purer will rise. The forces of nature, the chaos that once threatened to consume everything, will now be tamed, reshaped by the will of those who remain. The Vikings understood this truth well. They saw the world as one of cycles: life, death, rebirth, an endless loop that defined existence. The death of the gods, the fall of Asgard, is not the final end. It is a necessary part of the cycle, a part of the larger order of things. For the old world to pass, the new must be allowed to take root. In the ashes of Ragnarok, there is space for something better, something more true. And in this new world, you see the legacy of the gods continue. Though Odin, Thor, and Freyr are gone, their influence lives on in the actions of those who survived. The brave warriors who fell in battle will rise again, given the chance to rebuild the world in their image. The values of the gods' courage, honor, loyalty will continue to guide the survivors, even in the absence of the divine. But now these values will be shaped by the hands of mortals, by those who know the true cost of the world they inhabit. The new world that rises from the ashes of Ragnarok is not one of perfect peace, nor is it one free of struggle. It will be a world that still faces challenges, still faces the forces of chaos that are part of nature itself. But it will be a world with a deeper understanding, one that has learned from the mistakes of the past. The gods, though gone, have left their mark, and it is up to the survivors to carry that legacy forward. It is not the gods who will shape the future now. It is those who have lived through Ragnarok and emerged on the other side. As the world begins to heal, the cycle of creation and destruction will continue. The survivors will rebuild, not just physically, but spiritually, forging a new path forward, one that honors the lessons of the past but is free from the corruption that once defined the old world. They will face new challenges, new battles, and new forces, but they will do so with a renewed understanding of the fragile balance between order and chaos. In this new world, the legacy of the gods will live on, not as divine rulers, but as ideals that shape the lives of those who inherit the world they left behind. And so, As the dust settles and the world begins to take shape anew, you understand that Ragnarok is not the end of everything, it is the end of an era, the death of what once was. But from that death comes new life. The world will continue, its cycles ever turning, its struggles eternal. The gods may be gone, but their lessons remain, etched into the hearts of those who carry on. And in that continuity, there is hope. Fire that Surtur brought may have consumed the old world, but it has also cleared the way for a new one. A world where the ideals of the gods live on, even in their absence. A world where the lessons of the past are remembered and the future is built not on the shoulders of the gods, but on the strength of those who choose to carry that legacy forward. Ragnarok may have ended the reign of the gods, but it has also paved the way for something greater, a new world, born from destruction, ready to rise again. As the last flickers of fire fade into the horizon and the smoke from Surtur's flames dissipates, a profound stillness settles over the world. The echoes of Ragnarok have died down, and the landscape, now scarred and burnt, seems to breathe with the possibility of a new dawn. It's as if the world itself is taking a deep breath, waiting to see what happens next. The gods are gone, the giants are vanquished, and the warriors who have survived the great battle are left to rebuild, to forge a new world from the wreckage of the old. In this new world, there's no grand hall of Valhalla where the gods sit in eternal feast. There is no Asgard glistening in the sky above, nor the eternal battle between order and chaos. What remains is a world where the survivors must carve out their place, where they must build not just physically, but spiritually. The lessons of the gods, their stories, their sacrifices, live on in the hearts of those who remain. And through them, the new world begins. There's a quiet beauty in the aftermath of destruction. Though the land is burnt, the soil rich with ash, there is also space for something to grow, something different from what came before. And the people who survived Ragnarok carry with them the knowledge that they are part of a larger cycle, one that will continue long after they are gone. They understand that life, like the seasons, is a constant cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The gods may have fallen, but the values they upheld have not vanished. The brave warriors who survived the chaos of Ragnarok are not the same as they were before. They are scarred, their hearts heavier with the knowledge that the gods themselves were not immune to fate. But in their scars, in their grief, there is also strength. The survivors know that the world they inhabit will never be the same, but it is still theirs to shape, to protect, and to carry forward. Ragnarok has ended, but its lessons will echo through time. The survivors will rebuild, not in the shadow of the gods, but with the wisdom they gained from their rise and fall. The new world will not be free of strife, nor will it be a perfect place. There will always be chaos, always forces that seek to destroy. But in the survivors, there's a new understanding, a deeper appreciation for the fragility of life, the inevitability of change, and the necessity of balance. They know that the cycle will continue, that life and death, creation and destruction, will always be intertwined. But they also understand that each new cycle brings with it the potential for something better. In this world, the lessons of the gods live on in the hearts of the warriors, in the storytellers who will pass on the sagas of Odin, Thor, Freyr, and all those who fought for what they believed in. Their stories are not just tales of gods and monsters, they are lessons for all who live in this new world. They are reminders that strength is not just in the weapon you wield, but in the heart with which you fight. That wisdom is not just in the knowledge you acquire, but in the ability to understand the price of that knowledge. That love, while powerful, must be balanced with sacrifice, and that peace, while precious, often comes at a cost. As the survivors look to the future, they realize that Ragnarok, in all its devastation, was not the end of everything. It was a turning point, a necessary destruction that paved the way for something new. The world they now live in is not one free from chaos, but it is one where they understand the delicate balance between order and destruction. They are the ones who will shape the future, carrying forward the lessons of the gods, not in blind reverence but with an understanding of their flaws, their sacrifices, and their ultimate fate. And so, as the survivors begin to rebuild, to forge a new world from the ashes of the old, you understand that this is the true meaning of Ragnarok. It is not the end of the gods, but the beginning of something new, something that will rise from the ashes of the past, stronger and wiser. The world will continue, and with each new cycle, there will be new heroes, new challenges, and new opportunities for growth. Ragnarok has shown the world that even in the face of ultimate destruction, there is hope. There is always the potential for rebirth, for change, for a better tomorrow. And in that, there is a lesson that resonates beyond the gods, beyond the giants, and beyond the Vikings themselves. It is a lesson for all who live in this world, that no matter how dark the storm, no matter how great the fire, there is always the chance for something new to emerge from the wreckage. So as you stand at the edge of this new world, watching as the survivors rebuild, you realize that Ragnarok was not the end. It was just the beginning. And with that realization, you know that, like the gods before them, the people who rise from the ashes will carry with them the lessons of the past, shaping the future with the wisdom they've earned through struggle, sacrifice, and rebirth. The cycle continues, and you too are part of it. Asterisk, asterisk. The world lies still now. The echoes of the gods fall, the flames of Surtur's sword, and the clash of chaos and order fading into the quiet hum of a new beginning. As the last embers of the old world extinguish, there is nothing left but the stillness of possibility. In the quiet aftermath, you can hear the faintest whispers of hope, a soft, almost imperceptible hum that speaks of rebirth, of a world that will rise from the ashes. The survivors stand amidst the remnants of their world, their hearts heavy with loss but filled with the knowledge that they have the power to rebuild. In this stillness there is a deep peace, not the peace of a world free from strife, but the peace that comes with understanding. The old gods have fallen, but their lessons endure. The new world will be shaped by those who survived, those who witnessed the destruction of everything they knew, and who found strength in their ability to adapt, to change, and to move forward. There is no perfect world ahead, only a world that has learned, perhaps, to embrace its fragility, its imperfections, and its constant cycle of life, death, and rebirth. As the ashes settle, and the future slowly begins to take form, you realize that this world is not just a reflection of the gods' legacy, but a testament to the resilience of all who live in it. The cycle continues, and the promise of something new is always within reach, even after the greatest destruction. With this realization, you can finally let the quiet settle in, knowing that, in the end, even destruction holds the seed of creation. Introduction template. Hey guys, tonight we're going on an incredible journey into the heart of Norse mythology. You've heard of Ragnarok, the end of the world as foretold by the gods themselves. But what does it really mean when gods fall? When the great battles are fought and when everything seems lost? This isn't just a story of destruction, it's a story of rebirth, of transformation, and of the ultimate fate of both gods and mortals. You might think you know what's coming: the thunder of Thor's hammer, the fire of Surtur's sword, the bite of Fenrir. But there's more to this tale than meets the eye. As we journey through the trials and tribulations of gods like Odin, Thor, and Loki, we'll discover that their greatest battles are not just with giants or monsters, they are with themselves, with the forces of chaos and order, and with the inevitable truth that all things must end. But even in the face of their destruction, there's a promise of something new. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together.